Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Financial Freedom. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Jim McKissack.
Hey, Jim, back for episode 2.
Yeah, how exciting.
How exciting. Awesome. Okay, so glad that you've joined us today on our conversation about life and financial freedom. And I want to start out, Jim, by sharing a case study that we discovered when we were writing our book, Hold. I think it's so impactful. And, our topic today is why financial freedom? Why is that even important to people? Why should they focus on it? Why should they worry about it, think about it? And so I'm always touched by a case study that they did where they followed 100 people around for their whole 40-year career.
40-year
working career. And what they found is only one person was wealthy, 4 were financially secure, 5 were working because they had to, not because they wanted to. 36 were deceased. That's sad too, right? We need to work on health better. And then 54 were broke and dependent on their friends and family.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when I heard that case study, I realized I get to decide which one of those categories I'm going to be in. And being in the 54 didn't sound very good because I don't know who in our family and friends could be the person to kind of step into our gap if we needed it. But I could certainly see that we could be the people that needed to step in that gap, financial gap for some of our friends and family. Right. That's impactful to me. So when you say why financial freedom is important to me, it's that, because if you don't design your life, somebody or something else will. And I just, that's the default. If we don't do anything, that's the default. And I don't like the default. I don't like any of those. I mean, I only like a few of those choices.
Whenever I heard that and I saw that case study and everything, the first thing I thought about was, how do you do that? How do you transform and how do you become that person? And that's whenever we got on our research journey and started reading, every book that we could find, The Millionaire Next Door, Wealthy Barber, Cash Flow Quadrant, Thou Shalt Prosper, the Robert Kiyosaki's books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the most important book we probably read, Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yeah.
And so it really put us on a journey to move to where we're not going to be on the 5% that really are, don't make it financially.
Yeah, that's a pretty low number, if you ask me, that comes out okay with that, comes out unscathed, if you will. And if you remember from episode 1, Jim and I started out $600,000 in debt. And it was suddenly that happened in our life that jolted us awake to realize that cash flow and wealth are not the same thing, right? And so when we were in such pain, we started trying to find books or people or anybody that could help us. And unfortunately, when we looked around, everybody was in the same situation because they were over leveraged and Texas economy had crashed, Oklahoma, Arkansas, all the surrounding places were in the same situation. But you and I found a book called Cash Flow Quadrant. And so let's talk a little bit about, the financial freedom. What is that? What did that look like when we read that book? What about it stood out to us?
That book really describes the difference between earned income and passive income.
Mm-hmm.
And for you and I, whenever we were first given ourselves an assessment of where we were financially, I kind of advise everyone to go back and to do that. And what we found out is that all of our money that we had coming into us through our real estate sales was from earned income. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so most wealthy people had their money coming into them passively through either people making them money or assets making them money. And so we had zero passive income at the time. 100% of our money came from earned income. And I think that's where most people start out, unless you get the money the old fashioned way, which is inheritance.
Right.
Then
and those only last like 1 or 2 generations,
usually.
Maybe. But I think my family even got inheritance. I didn't see a penny of that. I mean, it was like we wound up having to bury them afterwards. Both of ours. So yeah, you got inheritance too, but it didn't go very far. So you can't count on that. But I think also we were in the middle of, we were self-employed. So we were in the S quadrant, right?
Right.
E for being an employee. Mm-hmm.
And the cash flow quadrant really divides passive income from earned income right down the middle. And then there's another crossing there in the top quadrant on the left is an employee, which is you making somebody else money or trading time for money.
Mm-hmm.
And number 2 is self-employed down at the bottom square. And that's on the left side of the equation. On the right side of the equation is businesses, which is people making you money, and the bottom one's investor with the assets making you money.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to me, I mean, I don't even know if there was anything else in the book, because after I saw that, that's all I needed to see. Because you and I both realized that, okay, 100% of our money was coming from the left side, but yet the people who got wealthier and had more freedom and didn't have the pain that we had, all their money was coming from the right side, or a lot of it was coming from the
The
right
most
side.
common denominator thing I got out of all the books that we read, Linda, was that wealthy people thought about money differently than we did.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, they thought about passive income. They thought about different streams of income. They were building money to where your money's working for you instead of you having to work for the money.
Mhm.
And so, and a lot of their streams, and we even had a mentor at the time that told us it was going to take us at least 7 different streams of income to live the lifestyle that we wanted at the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And so, and that proved out pretty true.
Yeah. So really the way you define a wealthy person is someone whose income,
Passive income.
passive income exceeds the lifestyle that they want. And I always say, if you don't like the one you have, the one you want, then
Yeah.
that's really how you know. And I say every day that you wake up, or every week that you wake up and you can't say that I'm financially free, you know what your job is this week is to go figure out how to create more wealth and passive income until it does exceed what it takes to fund your lifestyle.
And we built our plan when we were 600 grand in debt. And at that time, I think our freedom number that we had up there was $250,000 a year coming into us passively whenever both of us chose not to work anymore
Yeah.
or couldn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so, that was a kind of our number then. I think that number's changed.
Yeah,
over
I
the
don't think we
years.
ever reset a new goal, but I kind of believe the philosophy now that if you bring enough value to the world, you can't get the money away. You just got to figure out what value you want to bring to the world.
Yeah, that's the old Zig Ziglar statement. The
No,
more people
his-
you help.
Well, his statement is you're going to get what you want in life by just helping enough other people
Yeah.
get what it is they want. But I think, the first thing anybody that's listening needs to do is says, yes, I've learned from COVID that I want to be financially free. I want freedom of my time, my money, my relationships. I would think the first thing they need to do is come up with that freedom number. And you and I picked 250. I don't really know why we even
Just
picked
threw it out there because that would seem like
a lot
a
of money. back
bajillion
then.
dollars out there whenever you're 600 grand in debt.
Yeah. And then the next thing we did is we said, well, which one of us is oldest? And you're 9 years older than me. So we took your age and said, by what age do we want this amount of money coming
And
in?
we said it was 60.
So by 60, we wanted this amount of money coming in. And so we just worked it backwards.
And then what was the easiest way for us to do it? Which one of the
Well, first of all, there's only 3 ways, right?
right?
So let's tell everybody what those 3 ways
It's the
are.
stock market, it's through real estate, or it's through businesses.
Yeah. And so what I love about that is if there was a million ways, I probably would freeze and not do any of them. But when it's 3, anybody can pick one of those and get started. And for you and I, because real estate seemed like the most well, first of all, where we were mentally, we had to sell a business for 600,000 less than we owed against it. So we weren't like jumping out of our skin to go open another business, and we didn't have the money or the credit to do it anyway.
Mhm.
And you and I both agreed that if you invest in the stock market, if you don't know what you're doing, you're really more of a speculator. You're not really an investor, and you're trusting someone else. And we didn't want to do either one of those. And neither one of us wanted to learn enough about it to make
Yeah.
those kind of decisions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have done really well in the stock market. And congratulations to them. But I also know if you and I pick a stock,
Pick
I
something
better
else.
run
Yeah.
the other direction because have not been known to pick very good stocks.
Or if we did pick good stocks, we sold them too soon. So yeah. So I always say, hey, if you hear us do a podcast or a seminar on stock picking, don't join, don't come in. But you and I said, what's the next natural door, which would be the easiest natural of those 3 for us to walk through. And because I was selling real estate, and we were selling real estate to try to make a living at the time, it made the most sense that we would pick real estate investing first.
And also, like one of my mentors, said that if you really want to get wealthy, real estate's the way to do it. And out of all the assets, stocks, real estate, and businesses, the number one builder of wealth over time historically is real estate. And for us, real estate, owning residential real estate houses was easy for us. It's easier than any other form of just going out there picking a stock. Because when you bought stock, you had to pay cash for it.
Yeah,
And we had one problem at the time.
we had no cash.
Yes. And so with real estate, you could leverage it and put, 25 or 30% into the deal, and you could have access to a, $200,000 property or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah. And, the thing is, we bought our first property while we were still climbing our way out of that $600,000 in debt. And so a lot of times when you and I teach this, one of the things people will say was, I don't have the money. Well, we didn't have the money yet or the credit either.
No, but you were really smart with what you did. Linda went on a listing appointment on the north side of Denton, and the seller of that property said, look, why don't you find an investor for me? I'd really rather go ahead and move. One of the spouses had already moved to where
They were both moved.
Yeah. And so the house was just sitting there, and it was deteriorating, had some issues with
Foundation
it,
issues.
foundation issues and some other stuff. But Linda came back to the office and she was all excited and said, this guy doesn't want to list. He wants me to find an investor to go buy the house. And I think we could make 15 grand just buying it and flipping it.
Well, and we'd already put the plan together. And here's why I say start with the plan. Decide what your freedom number is, because I truly believe, now we're faith-based people, so we're going to believe that God ordains us to see these opportunities once we decide that. I read a great book recently called Win the Day by Mark Batterson. He's a great pastor. And he said in there, I do the little things like they're big things so that God can do the big things like they're little things. And I think when I heard that, I was so impactful, because that's what you and I have done. We've kind of just gone out on faith that if we just do the little things, God will do the big things. And so because we had set that goal to do that, we had already worked it backwards, that we needed 20 properties free and clear over the next 5 years.
Yeah, we're going to buy 20 properties over 5 years.
Well, yeah, that's
and
right.
We needed to pay for those properties over 15 years to make it. We would have 20 properties paid off free and clear within 20 years.
Yeah.
And so that's how we
And
set
I
up
think-
the formula to earn $250,000 passively.
And I think by having that plan, I think the rest kind of happens because you have committed to doing it.
Because you're getting on that journey.
Yeah.
And what I found is the investor world and stuff, it's like anything else. Once you really get into it, it builds other relationships with other investors, other deals come along, and
It's like most things, it's harder on the front end. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So when I believe, now that house showed up because we had made a decision and decided to do it. And so when Jim reminded me that we were broke, no credit, couldn't do the house. First of all, I don't like no as an answer. It's not my favorite answer. And then that night I went to sleep. And when I woke up, like a lot of problems, we solve them, we're sleeping. I have a little.
That was about 2:00 in the morning.
I have a little sign by my bed that says, give it to God and go to sleep. So that's what I did. And on the next morning, I woke up and Lou Craft was on my mind, and he was a builder of mine at the time. And I said, I'm going to go ask Lou. And I think.
And Lou was just kind of a salt of the earth guy, great
such a good
builder,
man.
And just a good man, good family.
Yeah. So I went to Lou and I said, hey, Lou, I got an opportunity. I can't do it if you don't do it with me. I'll put my commission in. You can, fix up the house. We'll pay you for fixing up the house, and then we'll split the profits. And so because of Lou, he did the first 3 properties with us. And that's how we started being able to invest in real estate while we were still climbing our way out of $600,000. So here's the thing. I don't care what your situation is right now. There's always a way that you can get this done, but it has to become a priority, and you have to have a big enough why of why this is important to you. And I think one of the ways to do that is to spend more time. If you don't do anything different, what does your life look like in 15 or 20 years from now?
That was such a pivotal moment in our career, though, with you thinking of Lou to come in as a partner, because I'd never considered partnering with anyone to go do this. And so that was just a brilliant move. And he was just such a good person. So being particular about who you go in business with is a huge thing. And then Lou had a lot of talent that he could put into the game too. The first, really, after that one, we flipped it and made the money on the 15,000. We bought a big 3,000 square foot frame house in the historical district that was hadn't been lived in 2 years.
Yeah, it was an RTC foreclosure. And when we got over there, Lou showed us that it could actually be a fourplex. And we laugh today because that property, now pays us more than your Social
Yeah.
Security that you get, right?
Yeah, we still own that property. It's been paid for about 15 years. And so, yeah, it brings us over $3,000 a month in income off of that property now. And, you know, it's one of the staples in our portfolio.
So again, I think, I think the answers are there. If you decide, you make the decision, you put the plan together, you decide what your financial number is, why your why is behind doing it. And then, just really go do the small things like they're big things. Even though we sold real estate, honestly, it's different than investing. And we didn't know about investing just because we sold real estate. And that wasn't it's just that we were willing to go figure it out and learn and try.
And you've got to be really willing to take some calculated risk.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we find lots of times it's one of the spouses is risk advert and the other one's willing to take a risk. And so we've had a lot of conversations around that with a lot of people over the years.
Yeah, we have. And, I think if you're listening to this and you're a couple like we are, you have to both sit down and decide, what do you want your life to look like? And I would say spend time in what will it look like if you don't do anything different?
That's a great question.
Because if you don't do anything different, and each person is coming from where they sit as it pertains to risk. And so I still think, though, if you got on the same plan and you were both after the same thing, it makes it a whole lot easier to take that risk. And, I just remember when we wrote our book and one of our friends came over and they're more risk adverse. And I remember her saying to us, my gosh, I mean, is it like a headache to have all those houses and all that stuff that goes along with it? And I said, yeah, I guess it could be, but I think getting old with no money, that would be a worse headache, you know? And so I think you got to get connected to, what does your life look like financially? Are you going to be stuck working longer than you want to? And I trust me, you and I are neither one believe in retiring. We love what we do. We'll always do it. But I like doing it because I want to, not because I have to, because you and I both could go lay on the beach somewhere if we wanted to.
Yeah. It's a lot more important than money, though. Building wealth and building, if you want to have a big life and do big things, you have to really go out there and do the hard stuff now while you're in your, earning years and, have some opportunity and stuff to do things in your latter years that you maybe couldn't do at that time period in your life.
Yeah. One of the other things that you and I did, because money, I know, is something that people are going to think about, which we have other ways that we've created financial freedom besides real estate investing, but we like to start there because that's where you and I started. But, we also, I kept reading in these books about automatic. And so I'm like, what is this automatic thing everybody talks about? And what it was is they would say that if you would take the money off the top, and we, you and I both love Mike, Motorbike Mike. I'm just going to call him Motorbike Mike because I can never say his last name, but he wrote Profit First.
Right.
And what he says makes so much sense because if you don't take it off the top, you won't take it off. And so because we'd been reading about this automatic, you and I began to have the title company take 15% of every commission check we ever made and take it away from us first.
Yeah. And so basically we were learning to live on 85% of our income.
Yeah, because you, as you like to say, we had the DMD disease. So tell people what that is.
That's called the disappearing money disease. If it touched our greedy little fingers, poof, it just disappeared. And so we had really poor money habits at the time and stuff. And so having this money automatically put into a A.G. Edwards at the time money market account was really our method of being able to save money to go invest, to go buy these rental properties. And also what it really did, it focused us to get laser sharp at our real estate sales. I mean, at that time, you moved up from listing 50 houses to 100 houses to 150 houses to 200 houses a year. And I worked from a buyer agent out there doing, 50 units a year to hiring 2 buyer agents and, and growing the inside business of that.
Yeah. So I think, with as far as the money goes, you're either driving it, living in it, eating it, or wearing it, right? It's kind of what we always say. And so that being said, the money is there somewhere. You just have to be dedicated enough to figure out where to take it from and put it out of your hands so that you can actually have enough money to put down. And that's what worked for us. That's how we were able to buy and maybe look at a partner, because there's a lot of people out there right now that don't like the amount of interest their money's bringing them.
Yeah, and you can trade your knowledge for money.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're in the real estate business and you already understand the real estate business, who better to bring in than a money partner to come in there with you and use your knowledge and skills to go find the assets and their money to go buy.
Yeah. And I would say too, if you're an employee or a self-employed person that's listening to this, well, like you always like to say, there's millionaires created in every one of the
quadrants.
Yeah. So don't be discouraged if you say, well, I don't really have any business and I don't have any investments. We didn't either in the beginning. We were in the S quadrant, self-employed. But even if you're in the employee quadrant, if you do the right things, you can get to financial freedom just like anybody else.
Well, there's a real good book out called The Wealthy Barber,
Mm.
and it talks about him saving 10% off the top of every haircut that he did, and put the money away in cash. And he lived a very, very high, wealthy lifestyle in his latter years.
Yeah. So I would say, the main thing is just ask yourself why would this be important to me? Because it is going to take a little bit of discipline on the front end and get the reward on the back end. And I think if you can really understand and see the benefits of what freedom can do for you, I think how many people quit their job last month, like 30 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just nuts. I don't know how they're going to eat or any of that kind of stuff, but I think I would have created financial freedom first before I quit my job.
Yeah.
But I think freedom is going to be, after COVID, really super important to a lot of people. And so I think our message is timely. I know it's been important to you. It's been a message that we've been teaching and spreading for the last, 25 years at least. So really, I want you to think about, what would financial freedom do for you?
And when you look at us, we're very, very, very normal people.
Well, I wouldn't say normal, but average.
Average.
We're not normal always.
But, if we can go out there and create this, it can't be that difficult.
Yeah. Well, it's simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
Right. Because I always like to say, you and I are not rocket scientists. We're not going to create a business in our garage that, blows up, and becomes whatever that business, Microsoft or any of that stuff, or Apple or any of those things. But we can do what we can do. We can take our unique abilities, and we can take discipline and habit and a focus, and we can create wealth too.
Yeah. One of the other things I learned along our path a little bit was, people that really built wealth over time and stuff, they're learning-based people.
Mm.
They always are learning and growing and stuff. And that's one thing that you've done your whole career. You invested. I mean, I thought, you were a seminar junkie. Every time we'd end up thinking about a vacation, it was usually at a seminar for Linda for real estate.
Well, think about it. I mean, honestly, I didn't have a college degree. I'd never made more than minimum wage. Nobody in my family had gone to college. Nobody in my family had ever owned a house. When I discovered learning, I saw it as a tool that I could use, and I can do that, right? And so there's a lot of people out there listening to this, and you can do that. I mean, to me, the biggest issue all of us have is that time is our biggest issue. So you got to learn how to leverage time. You got to learn how to leverage money, and time is just as important as money. And we'll talk about this in later episodes, but to me, growth and learning is one of the greatest leverage points ever.
Well, that's one of the common denominators that I see in people that build wealth.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we'll put a list. You can go to Everything Life and Financial Freedom, and we'll have a list of books there. If we mention any books in this podcast, we'll go ahead and put them at the bottom. And then you can also go to Everything Life and Financial Freedom /freedom number. And you can download our worksheet on how we decide how much financial freedom is your freedom number. And so we'll link that in the show notes. And Jim, any last words you'd want to share before we close this episode out?
Get on the journey.
Yeah, just make the commitment. You don't have to know all the how. You learn in motion, you learn in activity. So if you have not, and you like this conversation, be sure to hit subscribe below. And the greatest compliment you can give Jim and I is a review, so that other people can find Everything Life and Financial Freedom. And again, thank you, Jim, for your knowledge on wealth and financial freedom. And I look forward to future episodes. This is number 2. So I'll see you over at number 3.
Sounds great.
Awesome. See you there.